Welcome back to Elements of Art in our unit online. I'm Natasha and I have another art question for you. Are you ready to get started with our first culminating project? Let's hope your answer is yes. Creating an art project will allow you an opportunity to stretch your creative minds and reinforce some of the information you have learned in this unit. Within this unit online, we've covered many topics, terms, and artworks. Now it's time for you to have the chance to be presented with 3 different project prompts. Choose the one you like and get to work showing what you've learned. In today's lesson, for each of the 3 project prompts, we will discuss the objective of the project, the instructions for completion, and provide an example of a possible completed project for each prompt. In this unit, we have covered the definition of line, the different types of line and their uses, line quality, contour, cross contour, and blind contour line, gesture and continuous line, lines in our environment, and implied lines. That's a lot. Now, with a culminating project, you have the opportunity to utilize some of this learning to make an art piece. We will cover 3 options of culminating project prompts, and you will get to choose your favorite of the 3 and get to work. Our first culminating project option is a contour, cross-contour, symbolic object self-portrait. That sounds like a lot, but don't worry, I'll clear up any confusion very soon. For this first project, our objective is to create a line drawing that utilizes contour and cross-contour techniques to create a symbolic self-portrait. We covered contour and cross-contour line drawings in an earlier lesson, where we learned that contour drawings are lines used to show the edges or boundaries of a subject, defining the outline and major details. And cross-contour drawings are lines that visually flow over the 3-dimensional form of a subject to form a topographical grid. So you will use those techniques to create a symbolic self-portrait. Let's get into that a bit more. A self-portrait is easy enough to understand. Most everyone knows what a selfie is, but a symbolic portrait is different. A symbolic self-portrait doesn't focus on your face or your person. Instead, it focuses on objects that represent you. Are you an athlete? What sports equipment represents your passion? What hobbies are important to you? How can you represent those activities? Do you have cultural ties that you connect closely with your identity? How could you represent that? With food, a flag, other objects? Do you have a strong system of beliefs? Can you represent those with something symbolic? This artwork that you create will be based off of a collection of physical objects that you have in your possession that, when viewed together, symbolize a lot about who you are. Begin by selecting symbolic objects that represent you or various aspects of yourself. Place them together artistically. Using your pencil, begin to make a contour drawing of your symbolic object. Remember to take your time, draw slowly, and pay attention to the outline of your objects and their main interior details. Once you've completed the contour drawing, begin to make cross-contour lines over the objects. A cross-contour drawing is when you draw lines across the surface of the object to show their 3-dimensional form. Pay special attention to the surface quality of each item in your still life. Using both contour and cross-contour lines helps to create a sense of depth and dimension in your drawing. Here's a finished example from the demonstration. As you can see, I have both contour lines and cross-contour lines visible in this symbolic still life drawing. When I created my symbolic still life, I chose to use art supplies, my favorite book, and a ballet shoe. Remember though, when you choose your objects, they should represent your interests and your personality. Our second culminating project option is a line doodle landscape. For this project, our objective is to create a Zen doodle inspired landscape that incorporates different line patterns and line designs to create a sense of interest and movement. First, we need to understand the concept of a doodle and a landscape. A doodle is a decorative line design, often made as a form of relaxation. Doodles are created through combining the different line types and line qualities that we learned in an earlier lesson. A landscape refers to a depiction of natural scenery, such as mountains, forests, rivers, and the sky, in a two-dimensional format, such as a painting or a drawing. So, you will be combining the idea of line doodles into a landscape format. Instead of typical textures found in a landscape, like the bark and leaf textures on a tree, or the fluffiness of clouds, each shape and object in your landscape will be filled with combinations of line types. Begin listing landscape ideas, drawing thumbnail sketches, and select a landscape that you would like to draw to fill in with line doodles. This can be a real-life landscape, like a view out of your window, or a scene you remember from vacation, or even an imaginary or fictional landscape. Start by drawing the basic shapes and outlines of your landscape, such as the horizon line and any major features like mountains, roads, trees, or bodies of water. Create this drawing with contour lines, similar to a coloring book drawing. Next, begin to fill in the landscape with different line types, creating patterns. They can be simple combinations or more complex designs like fractals or mandalas. Refer back to the line type and variations you learned earlier in the unit to help you if you run out of ideas. As you work, try to create a sense of depth and movement by using different patterns in different areas of the landscape. Once your line doodle landscape is complete, you can add color if desired. Here's the finished example from the demonstration. As you can see, I've used contour lines to create a landscape scene and filled in each area of the drawing with a different combination of line types and variations. I've chosen not to add color to my drawing so that my doodles would be easier to view. But you can add color to your artwork if you would like. Our third and last culminating project option is a drain the pen fantasy drawing. For this final project prompt, our objective is to create a continuous line drawing of a fantasy scene, exploring the effects of line weight and texture, and using the pen until it runs out of ink or you run out of steam. In an earlier lesson, we learned about continuous line drawings and how they are created, allowing no opportunity for the pen to leave the page. Continuous line drawings create a single unbroken line that flows around and through the subjects on a page, capturing movement and form. The plan behind the title of this project, Drain the Pen, is to draw with a pen until it runs out of ink. This requires a lot of overlapping of your continuous line. You will use this technique to create a fantasy drawing. All that fantasy means here is something outside of reality. It could include any number of fantasy creatures, plants, locations, or scenes. Begin by selecting a pen and testing it on a separate piece of paper to ensure that it's working properly. Next, think up a fantasy scene to draw. This can be anything you can imagine, from a magical forest to a futuristic space scene or a dragon's lair. Do the steps of listing ideas and creating thumbnail sketches before settling on your fantasy scene idea. Once your design is chosen, start drawing your fantasy scene using a continuous line, meaning that you will not lift your pen off the paper until the drawing is complete. Pay attention to the line weight and the thickness and thinness of the line to create texture and depth. Keep drawing until the pen runs out of ink, or you just get too tired. And then evaluate your drawing. Because it may take a while to finish, you will not only have a lot of overlapping, you may also grow tired and need a break. If you find that you do need to stop for a moment, you can lay your pen down, but when you pick it back up to continue, try to place your pen back right on the line that it was in the process of drawing. Here's the finished example from this demonstration. As you can see, I've used a lot of ink in this artwork. The continuous line has gone around and through each component of my fantasy scene and has overlapped itself many times to create thick lines and textures. Your scene will likely look very different from mine, as there are so many different types of fantasy scenes and creatures to choose from. There's a rubric included in the PDF to help you evaluate your final drawing. Be sure to refer to it when you feel your art project is finished. A self-assessment rubric can be used to evaluate one's art, as it provides a clear set of criteria and expectations for the work, allowing you to focus on areas for improvement. I hope you have a great time selecting a project prompt this week, using your knowledge of line to create a strong artwork, having the opportunity to get creative and get your hands in those materials. Overall, the goal is to learn and grow. So have fun, and remember, art is all around you.
Hey.